Great. Good afternoon. So what I'm going to be talking about, it's the, not the general things, but rather the forms of funding, what kind of projects you can get, the different rules for that, and finally the topics that are open, but I won't go through all the topics because that would take forever, at least one day, but rather the examples of the Commission, what kind of proposal they wish to get, and what they wish not to get. So the thing that's different from the previous framework programs that there is, in principle, a single set of rules. So they will cover all the different programs from all those three different pillars, the ERC, the leadership and technology society challenges, but also the other funding bodies that are separated, actually, those Article 185 or 187, as you remember, the joint undertakings like Artemis, ENIAC. All of them, they will have a single set of rules. So it won't be any difference. The funding rules, other rules will be basically the same unless it's written separately. There will be some derogation from that, but in general, they'll be the same. And what will be needed to actually read carefully is the financial regulation that will be slightly different from what was done previously in the 7th framework program. So, forms of funding. Normal funding, as previously, the grants to the projects, and they'll be two different levels, but just normal project funding. Then a new instrument introduced are prizes, and that's the rewards for something that was achieved or to be achieved. Also, the procurement will be introduced much larger form that's taken after the United States. They will use heavily the innovation procurement or the procurement by military to get new technologies. And finally, different financial instruments that Bogdan told about, the supporting to the enterprises to get the new innovative enterprises or other forms of economic activity. So, coming to grants. Now they are called, the projects are called actions. One of my former colleagues from the European Commission, he told, well, we won't be any longer project officer, we'll be action officers. Sounds fishy, okay. If you combine that some of those project officers were actually the so-called the contractual agents, contract agents. Together with action officers, that's, we are talking about NSA agents, but that's a different story. So, when it comes to the grants for the normal projects, for the actions, there are some minimum conditions normally. For the normal projects, for collaborative projects, it's as before. A minimum is 3 different participants from the 3 different EU countries or associated countries. They can be also the other types of calls, international calls, when some other countries are specified, and they also apply those countries as one of the funding parties in the proposal. So 3 at minimum. But then, of course, there is basically the sky is the limit, unless, of course, it looks like the total EU being in one project. That might be a little bit too much, but it's really guaranteed this. For the SME instruments and also the coordination and support actions, and also this program co-fund, there can be just one legal entity that can be a funding member, which means that you can have just one SME or institute or whatever in this type of projects. Previously, only the support actions of those could be a single funding party in a project. Now there are more of that. And there is, of course, the limitation. There is so-called the fast track to innovation. instrument for SMEs when there is a limit on the maximum number of participating project participants, which is limited to 5. There may be some additional rules. They will all be stated in the work program, so read it carefully. When it comes to the eligibility for funding, so all the participants from the member states of EU, and also associated countries. Normal associated countries, it will be the countries like our neighbors, Norway, Switzerland, Israel, Iceland, there are some others, Turkey, and also the countries that are identified in the work program. And also the entities that are created under union law. So the Joint Research Center European, can be also a part in this in the project. Also the International European Interest Organization and some other international organizations. And of course, also the entities from other countries can be funded if they are necessary for the project. And they don't need to be identified. But there's a list of countries that actually can get funding. It was formerly called ICPC countries. The list changed, so check carefully if the country is on the allowed list. So when it comes to the evaluation of the proposals, it's going to be as before. It will be peer review. And they are still the same criteria. It's the excellence. It's the actually only criterion for the ERC, for the excellence in science. So it's the only thing that you need to worry about. But then for the other type of project, it'll be the impact. And in a lot of those projects, the project proposals, it'll be the most important criterion, and especially for the what is called innovation actions. So if you see innovation actions, then start writing your proposal from this point of view, what kind of impact it's going to be. And then finally, it's the quality and efficiency in the implementation. That's basically what kind of partners we have, how the management structure looks like, and so on. So very much alike FP7 with some derogations. And also there will be weighting applied, especially for the, as I say, for the things that got to do with the innovation. Also, in many cases, we used to tell that if there is something that in the call text, if the Commission writes that, for example, it's good to have some SMEs in the project, it basically means that you must have it. You just can't avoid it. It's not just a pure wish, it's rather like command. So since the evaluation will be carried out by the independent experts, the Commission don't have all the control about the process. They have some control, but not full control. So think about that you write it in the way that's easy to understand and that basically anybody, it's write as you would write for young scientists. There's also a possibility of two-stage submission procedure, which means you start with the project outline and then the full proposal. But that will be stated in the call text. It was a lot of complaints about the really long time from the proposal submission to the project start. So Commission tried to cut it down from what they tell from 9 months in theory to 8 months. In reality, it was normally much longer. Actually, it was up to something on average up to 18 months. So the 5 months actually to inform the applicants about the outcome. that probably will be done. But then, of course, the time to grant it, they want to have it during 3 months, and if nothing actually happens, you probably will get it. Previously, the so-called negotiation could take quite a long time, and this time in Horizon 2020, the Commission tells that those negotiations will be very brief. There will basically be no negotiation. They will actually accept your proposal as a ground for the grant, for the say annex of description of work. So the possible changes will be very small. They will also accept the budget. Of course, there might be some discussion. The Commission have a thing that they use, and they probably will use. It's so-called stop the clock, which means 3 months. It's Commission time. Whatever they propose, change or do or don't supply immediately, they will stop the clock during the time. So it will be the effective Commission time. So in reality, it still probably will be longer. So the consortium, again, as previously, the coordinator will be the major and single point of contact with the Commission. So Commission will not have any contact with the participants of the project except the coordination. And what's necessary also, as before, the consortium agreement that will basically cover all those different points that you can see here. So whatever, it's the rights, obligations, the internal organizations, the IPR, internal disputes, and so on. And it's normally the case for having lawyers involved. I've seen a lot of things that there have been really disputes between the partners. So it's good to have a good consortium agreement. The funding will be simplified again. So there'll be per action, or which means within the same project, there will be just one funding rate, which means in the research and innovation projects, it's up to 100% reimbursement rate. For the project closer to the market, which is called the innovation actions, it's TRL, something 6, 7 up. They will be reimbursed up to 70%, with the exception of the non-profit partners, which means the universities and institutes that still can get 100%. So for the academics, that won't make any difference. And also they will make things much easier, but not perhaps the most profitable. It will be just one funding rate for the overheads. For the indirect cost will be 25%. Actually, it's on average, it's actually a large increase in comparison to FP7. In FP7, an average for the, at least for the academics and for the small companies was 120% total. In Horizon 2020, it's 125. So it's 5% increase of the costs. So one thing that's in this case that you need to look at, I won't go deeply into it because that's sort of higher course, the receipts. In FP7, normally there was no problems with the receipts because that projects were funding at most at 70%, which means that receipt could, with that you could go up to 100%. Here at funding of 100%, there'll be very little space for the receipts. If you have any question about receipts, we can take it after. But it's not very easy to explain, so it will take longer. So perhaps you can consult us separately if you got questions about Controls and audits also simplified, but at the lower level. So previously it was 375,000 euros that you would have to supply the audit certificates, or they are called again audit certificates. That was used in FP6. FP7 was the statement on the financial certificates. And also you can use those different types of certifications on the methodology and on the average personnel cost, but it's normally quite complicated. Also, the post audits for the projects, you need to keep the records for 2 years in comparison to 5 years before. So all the records for the project needs to be kept. On average, perhaps 6 years. It was up to 10 years before. So it would make life a little bit easier. I'll take the final slide before the coffee break. When it comes to the other instruments, there is the SME instruments, which means that, as I said before, it's just one SME that can actually constitute the whole consortium, but they can be more of them. And there are different types of this instrument. They can be lump sums for smaller projects, to just very explorative, to discover the technical feasibility. Then the more normal projects, larger projects, grants for that. And also, there will be the support actions or the coordination support actions for helping of the exploration of the outcomes. But there is also this fast track to innovation that they will be the open calls and with maximum of 5 participants with 3 million at maximum euros. And also, they won't go through the program committee, which means that the the funding will be much faster than previously. So that's the reason it's called fast track, because it actually short circuits a lot of steps here. Okay, so again, I'll proceed the presentation, and we'll start with the most important part of the framing program. It's the intellectual property rights. So what's going to be the result of that? So the ownership, whoever created the IPR, that's generated the results, that they are ownership. If it's not clear who created it, they may be in some cases the joint ownership, but it's not actually to be recommended, especially when it comes to the patent rights. Joint ownership is not to recommend. And Commission wishes actually to the protection of the commercial results. So if there is possibility, you can always actually put in the budget, and also recommend it, to some of it to the IPR protection. Patent rights, other type of protection, whatever you may need. And if it's not protected, actually the Commission may assume the ownership. Also, there is no enforcement of the use of the right. It's not very strict, but it should be based on the best effort results. There's one thing, since those are European projects funded almost 100% by European Commission, they may object the transfer of the results or the exclusive licenses to the third countries outside EU. So if you're going to do that, you have to actually ask the permission from the Commission. They may grant it, normally they perhaps do, but not necessarily, especially in the case when it comes to the security, ethical principles or something else. So it's something to consider. And also, when it comes to dissemination, it should be the open access for the information that you publish. So how the IPR is treated. Within the project, so between the partners, if you need any kind of IPR for implementation of the research or development, it should be granted to you free of charge with no restrictions if needed. For exploitation, that's a different story. Then it's based on the need to exploit situation, and also you most likely you will have to pay. So it should be done under reasonable conditions, fair and reasonable conditions, as it's normally treated. So they are, when it comes to the royalties, there are some established level for that. And also for the non-commercial use and policy-related purposes, that should be done on non-royalty, on the royalty-free basis. Next instrument, prices. That's a new thing in the framework program. So prices, as normally been before in all other fields, they're actually the recognitions of the achievements. You get normally the Nobel Prize, but there's a second prize that's so-called the inducement prizes that also been used by the Nobel Committee. As you remember, perhaps Barack Obama, he got Nobel Prize after 1 month in the White House. I won't mention any other comparisons to this guy, what those inducement prizes might be, but it's actually for the future achievements. And also, as prizes, they should be done, rewarded on fair basis and so on. So, but it's a new instrument. So if you did something very good, you won't get paid first during the project, but afterwards, perhaps. Another instrument, procurement, that's been tried out already in FP7, to a smaller place. It's taken after the American model, when they have a heavy innovation procurement, especially by the Department of Defense, when they pay actually for development of new technologies. Also, NASA had this use of the procurement. So the procurement will be carried out just by EU or together with the member states. And also there's a normal procurement, that there should be value for money, that all that stuff that's normal in the public procurement. They may have the special provisions, what they need to get there, so it's not only because it's the innovation procurement, it doesn't need to be only the value for money, but you can add some other things. It should be novel, special, green, whatever. The result generated by this procurement will belong normally to the EU, if it's not written anything else in the call for tenders. It might be the derogation from that. So this kind of instruments normally would go to the public organizations, which means governmental, local, and so on. So it's not an instrument for the private companies. When it comes to the evaluation, the experts, as before, the Commission will use the experts for evaluation of proposals. and it's a peer review, which means that Commission's got some control of the outcomes of the evaluation, but not full control. That depends, of course, on the experts. They will monitor, as previously, the projects. And that's something to actually remember, that the evaluations that Commission takes action during the project time, that really may affect how the project proceeds. And if you don't deliver what you written in the project plan, if you don't deliver all the deliverables that will be accepted by those experts, you may not receive the payment. I myself ran into this project when I ran the project for Ericsson. Of technical reasons, we couldn't deliver one thing. It was just too late and too complicated to redo. Commission just cut off the payment for that work package. So, and I know other projects that run actually in big problems because the evaluators of the project that monitor the project didn't accept the deliverables. So that's something to keep in mind. Also, they will help the Commission for the implementation of different policies and also evaluation of the total programs of the research programs. There is a possibility of you actually to register into the EMM database. And if you already are experts within FP7, you have to re-register. And the Commission actually used this database to identify different experts. So it's a very good experience actually to be an expert and participate in evaluations or the program or project monitoring. So it's going to be sort of difficult, and especially in those social challenges when there are a lot of different disciplines involved, to actually to compose a good a choice of experts that can actually give a judgment on the proposal. Previously, on smaller project, they got 3 experts from one discipline, 5 if it was a larger project. Now, if the projects, some of the projects will actually be very horizontal, you may need a lot of experts actually from different disciplines. So we'll see how the Commission will solve it. Also, you have to declare the conflict of interest. So if you represent an organization, you can't actually evaluate this organization's proposals. Also, the names of those experts will be published on the web as they are today. Now coming to the topics, there are 21 topics in the 2014 work program for the ICT. It's not possible actually for myself actually to go through it during those 15 minutes that are left. So I'll give you a flavor in some of the topics, what kind of proposal Commission would like to see and what they don't want to see. So when it comes to the ICT one, the topic number 1, the cyber-physical systems, they want to see the objective, that's new concepts, new paradigms, platforms, and foundation for the future cyber-physical systems. When it comes to the stakeholders, which is the composition of the projects, they need suppliers, the users of those cyber-physical systems, system integrators, but also academics and research institutes, basically to all over different application sectors. And what kind of activities they would like to see? It's the modeling, integration frameworks, connecting innovators across the value chains, and when it comes to objectives, they want to have those cross-cutting projects through the barriers between different sectors. And also, since it's going to be innovation included, to have the mass market. Also the bringing again, the sectors along, the whole complete value chain, from component suppliers to the end users. New ICT platforms for that. And also you need to actually match-make the customers and future technologies and services of those cyber-physical systems. A lot of that is already today within the embedded systems. What you add is the sensors and communication to get those cyber-physical systems. When it comes to smart system integration, that's an example of what they do not want to have. They don't want to have the more devices without system integration perspective. And also the research and development efforts with low exploitation and no innovation impact. So basically separate technologies that you want to develop a thing that wouldn't fit very well in this program. For the ICT3, the thin film organic electronics, they have a huge amount of different topics what they would like to see. So they want to have the flexible substrates for the electronics, to demonstrate the products enabled by this new flexible electronics. So we can imagine you can get your iPad that you can basically have a roll or put it in your wallet. And also the technology take-up innovation support. That's very close to the market. So the access services to industry to get the early users and also the SMEs for the wide adoption of this kind of systems. And also this instrument that I talked before, the pre-commercial procurement. So that's specific for the public authorities for procuring the textile solutions for healthcare applications. Looking at the low power computing, they want to have the solution for servers, microservers, highly parallel embedded computing systems on a ultra low power architectures. Programming is very important, so cross-layer programming approaches to exploit the heterogeneous parallel architectures. And parallel, it means a lot of computers together. Also, they wish to have the reference architectures, platforms across different sectors and application domains. And finally, to have the experiments that will bring together all different actors from different areas. For the software, they wish to have an impact, direct impact, to have the productivity increase in all areas, to the development, testing, verification, and the tools to handle the complex software systems, but also actually the long-term impact to increase the productivity in the industry by having the better software tools. In the topic 10, collective awareness platforms for sustainable and social innovations, what they do not want to have, it's proposal without a clear existing community of motivated users. And also the proposals that are technology driven and aiming at pure commercial solutions. So you need to read really carefully the text to think what they wish, what they not wish. And also that the consortia, when it comes to partners, without at least 2 partners which are focused on non-ICT disciplines, which means outside the ICT sector. So you need to create larger consortia than pure ICT technology. The web entrepreneurship, what they don't want to have, it's the new IT platforms. They may use the existing platforms, but not have actually developed the new ones. And also the proposals that will not engage the real people or real players in the ecosystem. So it's not just the theory or just the experimental exercises. You need to have real users for that. So who would be in this, the real players? It'll be the investors, startup associations, also the big corporations or higher education entities with support for startups. As you heard before, Swedish-ICT, they have this kind of function. So they would be actually a perfect player in this case. Also, the regional organization focus on the web entrepreneurship. There are several of those in different regions in Sweden. So, support to the ICT, innovative, creative SMEs. They would like to have small projects, somewhere between €0.5 and €1 million, with very short runtime, 6 to 18 months. But of course, you may apply even for larger projects or longer. That's not excluded. But also the consortia, they in the driving seat, the main partner should be the SME. Also, the contributors can be actually the academics or the institutes. So the technology, it's emerging technologies, tools, innovative products. They've got some examples. It's the 3D, augmented reality, this kind of things. And it needs to be really user-driven, address the existing markets. When it comes, it just came into my mind that in the work program, there is, in many of those topics, can be a mix of small and large projects. Nowhere in the work program, it's defined what's large, what's a small project. So basically, you can have any. But at least when I talk to the Commission officials, they treat that around €5 million. That's a border between large and small project. Around that, there's no strict definition for that, so you can use both. But if you address that's a lot, let's say 6 million, we for sure were large projects, while perhaps 5.1 million could be still treated as a small project. So going to this SME, topic 18, it's a totally new topic, never been used before. So what they don't want to get of the proposals, it's to repeat the history. Leading players said they need to be SMEs, and in this case, you need to read the position papers of the ETP, European Technology Platform, that's called närmare, it's new media. And if you need some more information, it's here. When it comes to the robotics, number 23, there is statement in the work program that they you need to actually read the strategic research agenda of EU robotics, where they specify the prioritized market domains. So they don't wish to get actually the proposals that don't address those domains. So you need to actually consult a different document. I just recently got a question about the proposal, how it would fit, if it's not good. Unfortunately, they didn't address anything that was stated in this research agenda as I could judge. So look carefully, whatever is written. There might be additional documents that you need to consult. When it comes to the ICT topic 29, it's a joint lead, those ICT and NMP action for the materials, device technologies, for the organic LED lighting, and they wish to have proposals how to realize this lighting on the large areas with higher brightness, more uniformity, and a demonstrator should be provided by the end of each project. So it's again close to the market. It's not pure research, far from the market. And also it should involve the relevant players, which means the material producers, the OLED manufacturers, and so on, and also the integrators of those systems. Coming to the number 31, human-centric digital age. So what they don't want to receive, it's technology-focused development projects that consider individuals as end users, so they want to have actually to involve the end users. And also the pure social science studies that are not linked actually to the ICT processes. So you need to have large ICT components, not just pure social studies. And also the coordination and support actions that are not have the concrete targets for outcomes and impacts, linking this social studies to the ICT development. And finally, the cybersecurity and trustworthy ICT. That shouldn't be here. That should be the final. So, okay. I'll be coming to the end. As Bogdan told previously, a lot of ICT topics can be found actually outside of this ICT call within the industrial leaderships. So the funding is, as you can see here, will be divided. So actually the largest proportion of the ICT research will be in this main call, but there'll be actually substantial amount of money in the other topics. So for example, in health demographic change, it'll be 269 million euros for the ICT topics, which will make up to 15% of that. Also for other larger parts, it's for the innovative, inclusive, and reflective societies, that's 26%, 82 millions. And for say security, it's 25% of the topic will actually be the ICT actions, which amounts to 100 million. So there will be actually substantial amount of money in those social challenges. So if you take into account of that, if you have some kind of proposal that actually would fit into both ICT and the social challenges, you may get funding even there. So